Hey, welcome. Mike Copplett's back here with you. This is session number 8. That means you have one more video worksheet to do, and then number 10 or session 10 is a Skype session. Well, we are going to look at a couple of things. First, we're going to look at how do you deal with nervousness, because it doesn't matter how long you've been preaching in front of a congregation. And, I've been doing this for just, 19 years, going on 20 here pretty soon. You still get nervous. And you should be nervous because you are going to, let me take a step back. You shouldn't be nervous because you're standing in front of a lot of people, which I'm sure some of you are. And I used to be that way, and I got over it. Not easily, but I got over it. You should be nervous because you are going to be interpreting and delivering God's word. That's a pretty awesome task. And that's why it needs to be done seriously. It needs to be done with research. It really does. It does matter. And the day you stop getting nervous about preaching God's word to the people and ensuring that you're getting it right is probably the day you want to stop doing it. So that's pretty important to remember. But nervousness can be controlled, and really what you need to do is to turn that nervous energy into positive energy. That can be a little difficult. That's going to take some time and practice, but you can do that. And there's lots of forms of this. You want to be careful about, one form, let me say it this way, one form of nervousness I've seen happen is people sweat through their clothes. And I don't mean because they're just going crazy up front. I mean because they're just nervous. And there are ways of preventing that. What I would suggest in nervousness is to, again, try to turn it into internal strength. But you're going to really have to figure that out. But you're always going to have a little bit of it. You got to get over being in front of people. The worst thing that happens is you make a mistake. What really helped me get over being nervous in front of people was I started doing children's close-up magic shows back in the 80s and into a small part of the 90s, mainly in the 80s. And if you can handle a bunch of 8-year-olds with one little kid telling you, I know how it works, you could probably get over anything. You got to learn to be quick on your feet. As you learn more about God's word, as you put more knowledge up here in your head, the easier this becomes, believe it or not, because you can start thinking on your feet. Now, of course, if you have a transcript and you're going through the transcript, hey, it's right there in front of you. Should be a piece of cake. And if you make a mistake and you trip yourself up, okay, but don't make a big deal about it. Don't take a lot of notice to it. You make a mistake, you move on. Maybe it's something you can chuckle about, that's fine. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't worry about it. Now, practice. You really should practice. Honestly, my best practice is when I'm in the car and no one's around and I actually can practice. Again, remember, I'm using outlines. I'm not using transcripts, and most of the time the outline ends up ingrained in my brain anyway. If you're using transcript, again, that's fine. Practice with it. Read it over a few times. I would print it out at least 1.5 spacing. I would go with an Arial 14 point, so it's nice and large, so that's easy to see, because the worst thing that happens is you can't read it. It's too small, it's too far away. Remember, you're going to have some distance between you and the podium depending on how tall you are. It is easier to go with 1.5 spacing Arial 14. You might even going to go larger, even bold it if you have to. Video yourself. Now you're saying, how can I video myself? Actually, it's easy nowadays because, hey, I'm working with 4 cameras and they're all webcams. You have, if you have an iPhone, if you have a tablet, especially a PC, you can videotape yourself. It's not that tough to do. And then see what it is you're doing and how you're doing it. That's probably the best thing to do. Then you can see if you're doing funny things. I'll tell you a story. I ended up buying suspenders because I'm one of those guys, I don't like my clothes too tight, but pants tend to slip a little bit. And I noticed when I videoed myself that, hey, every so often I was grabbing on the side of the old robe and pulling the pants up. I hated that. That looked terrible. But if I had not watched myself in a video, I never would have seen it. So what did I do? I went out and bought suspenders. I bought the Western kind that clip to the belt hook. And then I don't worry about it. So if my pants feel like they're slipping, I know they're only going to go so far because the suspender is going to catch them. So videotape yourself. Illustrations. Personal illustrations are very nice. As you're preaching to the same group, over time, they actually can be grateful to know something about yourself. And that's good. But there's a minus. If you start bringing in family members, and especially kids, which I have done, that also can backfire in your face if the kid is in the congregation or finds out later that you said, hey, when so-and-so was a kid, you should have seen what she did. So you have to be really careful about it. Illustrations, your life is probably full of illustrations. There are illustration books. The problem is, I can tell when someone is using an illustration from a book because it doesn't come out like conversation. It comes out very, how do I say this, like it's being read. If you're going to use an illustration, you have to figure out how to almost make it your experience, even though you might not have had that experience, so that it looks like it's you speaking and not just reading something out of a book. There's lots of illustrations. This is the internet age. You're going to find illustrations, a little itchy there, all over the place. Dictation software I had mentioned, because if you're going, this is a suggestion, if you're going to use a transcript, I suggest Dictation software. iPad, I think, comes with it. Android. I use Dragon 15, Dragon naturally. Actually, I use Dragon Preferred 15. I just put it on a Lenovo Yoga 2.4 i7 Gen 6. Runs like a champ. And what it does is it gives me the transcript as I'm talking. And then I can go back. And you're going to have to do some correcting because speech recognition is speech recognition. You're going to then have a conversational document. Now, what's important in that is when you correct it, don't make it perfect grammar. Because if you figure out how to read that dictated transcript so that we can't tell you're reading, but your grammar is perfect, we're going to know. We're going to know you're reading it. Don't make it perfect. This is not Yale or Harvard or Penn State that you're delivering this to. And that brings me up to grammar. And there are two, actually, I call them written grammar versus spoken grammar. And just finishing the PhD dissertation, I was reminded from 8 years ago when I did the Doctor of Ministry paper that written grammar is a lot different, and academic grammar is even worse. Spoken grammar is what people will hear. They'll see it as a conversation, even if you're reading the transcript, because hopefully you're looking up once in a while from the transcript. They hear oral communication. So perfection in your grammar, it's not there. Don't send perfect grammar. That's, again, these are my opinions of doing this for 20 years and teaching presentation skills for about 4 years. You don't want to sound like you're from Yale or Harvard or Princeton or one of those places. Okay, that appears to be all of the material from this session. So I will see you in session 9. There's a worksheet for session 8. Please fill it out, take a look at it, and I'll see you in the next session. God bless you.